I welcome you to the third session of June monthly current affairs series. Now, today, as we do, third we'll discuss the international affairs. So, the fourfold division of the session, that is country specific, international institution, summit and initiative, and finally the bilateral ones. Let's start the country specific news. Okay, so first is campaign zero chance. Okay, so by Australian government. So what they're saying basically that in Australia, those people coming by illegal boats, those coming by the boats, they will not have any chance, they have zero chance of getting into the country. So they are saying to raise awareness among the people who are trying to enter the country illegally by the boats. Details: Australia so far have turned out around 900 people on 35 vessels trying to enter Australia illegally as part of the Operation Sovereign Borders that has been implemented since 2013. If you see the context, a lot of because of the too much many of the issues, environmental refugee, the refugees from the war zones like Syria, refugees from the persecution like Rohingya. So many people are using these boats to get into the countries. In fact, the Rohingyas are also known as the boat people. That's a story for other day. So zero chance to enter the country. So the Australian authority have said, just one second, yeah. So Australian authority, the message of the zero chance is simple. Anyway, anyone who tries to come illegally to Australia by boats have zero chance of success. So what question can be asked? The question can be this campaign zero chance has been in which country? In fact, they can tell you the meaning of this zero chance of getting into the country. Now you have to identify the country. Now you may associate with any European country or neither country because the migration, majority of the things we read are from this, from goes to the Europe, right? But this is the other way around, Eastern movement. Next is Porto Williams. So it should be in the location area in our first video itself, but let it be. So it's in a child. So recently granted a status of a city. Now the world's southernmost city. Okay, earlier Ushuaia in Argentina was the southmost city. If you see the map, so um, you can see here the southmost here, the first city, and that's the earlier city. The detailed map is here. So Porto Williams here, earlier it was the southern city. Now this got the status of city from the Chilean government. Next is very important report, this 301 section 301 report. Okay, given by the United States Trade Representative, USTR. Okay, not UN, remember. But a special 301 report is highly relevant. Okay, so that's the name, special 301 report by the office of the USTR. So basically what this report is all about, this report is gives the indication of the IPR infrastructure of the many countries, right? One of the problems India faces with the US relation is with respect to the intellectual property right, IPR protection. Now these reports when come out and they condemn and they show the grave concern of IPR situation in India, what Indians say that this is a deliberate attempt to weaken India's patent act and to tarnish India's generic pharmaceutical industry. Now, just to give you a context very quickly, so US, a lot of branded patented drugs are there, and India, we have the regime of compulsory licensing. Okay, so if the drug is very important for the people, the government of India can allow the generic manufacturer to produce those branded drugs without the permission of the original manufacturer. Okay, so that regime in US is criticized. US criticizes those regimes, especially the high-end pharmaceutical companies in the US. So that is the overall context. We will cover compulsory licensing and evergreening somewhere down the line because that's not in current affairs, but that one is really important. Next is El Salvador recognizes forest as a living entity. So El Salvador itself lost 85% of the native forest since 1960. 85% of the forest. So now what they want to achieve? Now recognizing the forest as a living entity sets the stage for new paradigm in El Salvador in which human lives in harmony with the forest and respects them more than just property. Without thriving for natural forest, our planet cannot support the human and the millions of other species that rely upon the healthy ecosystem. Right? Last year, too much in news when Ganga was declared as a living entity. But we are reading about the El Salvador. Okay, so location of El Salvador also becomes relevant. So it is the Central American countries. Now many times we do not take into consideration the um, Central Asia, the Central American countries, not Central Asian, Central American countries. Okay, so these are very small countries. Some geography based question can be asked. For example, El Salvador is this, and this opens to Pacific Ocean, not Atlantic Ocean. Okay, so remember that. For similarly, Honduras opens to this. This Nicaragua opens to both. So these kinds of some of these questions can be formed. What I particularly feel, the question on Panama can be asked. Okay, the Panama country, this is Panama, yes. So between which two country the Panama is situated, because Panama Canal is itself is important. So country is Costa Rica and Colombia. Okay, two seas. You can remember two seas in between Panama Canal. So Costa Rica here and Colombia there, and we have seen the location of El Salvador. Next is CARTSCA, very important act passed by US Parliament. Now, last year it was too much in news again. So it is by USA to counter the aggression by Iran, Russia, and North Korea through punitive measures. So they have delivered, they have portrayed this Russia, Iran, and North Korea as their adversaries. And what they want to achieve? They want to say that those people who trade with these countries, we will put sanctions on those countries. For example, India is having a trade deal with Russia, sorry. Now the US will be saying that we will put sanctions on India. For example, what it says, CARTSCA specifically enacted legislation's ultimate goal, in the words of department, is to prevent revenue from flowing to the Russian government. So the basic idea is, if the money will not go to its adversary, the adversaries will mend their ways. So it is a symbol of the hard power, not soft power, hard power, right? Economic sanction. Now in India, problem was with S-400. So this is the missile system that we wanted to procure from Russia, and it was too much in news whether it will go through or not, because India can attract sanctions from the US for purchasing this from the Russia. For India, it was a case of the strategic autonomy. Okay, finally India went ahead with it and got the waiver also. Okay. Next is GDPR, General Data Protection Regulation. It's very important, can come in your UPSC paper. So it is by the European Union. So the whole talk of data, one more fact we'll see with respect to data. Data is the new oil, right? Our finance minister said in this budget, and data has been too much in news. I've told you many times in our short series that we had this 13 video. So we have already discussed many times about data, the relevance of data, and this European Union has come out with a very good act, General Data Protection Regulation, okay, that can serve as a model for the other nation. For example, when we write about the BNC Krishna committee, it has also taken a cue from this particular regulation. In fact, when we write the way forward, we say that we can have a role model, or we can have inspiration from the EU's model. So mandate, what they're saying, that every EU citizen's data shall be stored in the EU only. What other rights that they give? For example, right to be forgotten. The data must be deleted if requested, or there are no legitimate grounds for the storage. To giving rights to the people, especially in this digital age. Okay, when many of the rights are seems to be can be violated by this big companies like Google, Facebook. Right to be informed, right of rectification, right to object about the content, and many things. What is relevant for you from prelim perspective? That this particular belongs to which country. Next is Windrush scheme. So it is in the UK, United Kingdom. So basically, what is Windrush scheme? So this Windrush scheme says that those people who belong to the Commonwealth, it enables Commonwealth citizens, their children, and some of the long-term residents of UK to obtain documentation confirming their status free of charge. So basically, UK has a Commonwealth, right? We will discuss Commonwealth in any of the video where we'll discuss about the Commonwealth, the members and all. So the former colonies of UK are in the Commonwealth. So it says that before 1973, whosoever has reached UK will be the citizen of UK, right? Don't have to remember too much, just need the context I'm telling you. So last year it was in news because there was a Windrush scandal. Windrush scandal. What was the scandal? It was scandal that many of the people who are eligible for this scheme, they will get the British citizenship. but they were not given the British citizenship. Their documents were asked, they were questioned. In fact, the children of those people who will get the citizenship automatically, their citizenship was in the question. So that is why this scandal was there. Now the Britain has said that we will revamp it. We will give you the chance again. Okay, prove your citizenship, bring your documents and get it done with. Citizenship has been in news, especially in India. So these questions you can expect in your prelims. So hundreds of Indian confirmed as UK citizen under government's Windrush scheme. Okay. In fact, the term Windrush comes from a ship named Windrush in 1950s. Some of the laborers came from Jamaica to UK. Not relevant for prelims, but I'm just telling you the story. So some of the laborers came from Jamaica to US, former colony of UK. So the name of the ship was Windrush. And why the labor came? To address the labor shortage in the United Kingdom. And so from there on, this became a this became as part of the policy. So in the wake of the immigration scandal last year, right? Next is Operation Hidden Idol. So there's a person named Subhash Kapoor. He has been involved. For example, his art dealer has been involved in the international smuggling racket of $100 million. Okay, worth estimate $100 million. What he is doing? Operation Hidden Idol from USA, Homeland Security's investigating department to recover and repatriate looted artifacts and antiques numbering 2600 by Subhash Kapoor. So these 2600 artifacts which has been smuggled by this person, an Indian again, so it brings a bad name to India, isn't it? And many of the artifacts are from India. Now we are becoming more and more cautious so that we retain our cultural heritage. Okay. So this is why it is in use by USA, Homeland Security. Homeland Security is basically like a home ministry of UK. Like India has a home ministry, their Homeland Security. Next is Bangkok Declaration on combating the maritime debris. So by ASEAN, okay, by ASEAN members, Special ASEAN Minister in return on maritime debris. Okay. So importance on fighting the maritime waste, a first of its kind which promises to prevent and significantly reduce maritime debris. Now, how this question will be asked? Recently, Bangkok Declaration on the combating maritime debris, it was in news. It was associated with which organization? Very simple question. ASEAN, OECD, and SAARC or something. Okay. So one thing I want to discuss. They talk about an integrated land to sea approach. This whole when they are meeting, they are talking about land to sea approach and integrated. Basically, what is this approach? Very simple approach. They are saying that currently our focus is basically on the land approach. We focus too much on the land approach, right? Sea has been neglected, or if we take care of the sea, that is post facto, after the wastage has gone from the land to the sea. So what they are saying that there should be continuum between the land and the sea. We need to, because to clean the land, what we do, what people do, if we focus only on the land, the authorities will push all the wastage of the land to the seas, right? So their work is done, but ultimately the wastage is in the sea, right? So they're talking about land to the sea continuum. So we will take care what is the with the statistics, how much wastage is generated, how it's going to the sea, how much is going, how can we prevent that, and some sort of things, right? So we have done with our first section. We'll quickly go to the second section, and second section is relatively long. Okay. First is IAEA. So it is called the nuclear watchdog of UN atomic watchdog. Headquarter is in Vienna. Vienna is in which country? Austria. 1957. Okay. So though this line is very important. So it is an independent of UN, but it reports to both UN General Assembly and the Security Council. So remember, it is an independent organization, but reports to both UNGA and UNSC. Objective, obviously, what will be the objective? To promote the peaceful use of the nuclear energy, to inhibit the use of any military purpose, including the nuclear weapons. And it was awarded the Nuclear Peace Prize in the Nobel Peace Prize, in the 2005. So IAEA was in news. We have discussed the Natanz facility in Iran. Do you remember from October location things? October or November, I'm forgetting, but we have already discussed that. Natanz, where the IAEA inspector was not allowed inside, and that is why it became a news. So IAEA is also taking care of this, deal between P5+1 and the Iran. We'll discuss this deal in detail. Okay. So widely named as World's Atom for Peace and Development Organization, this IAEA. Okay. That much information is required. Next, BIMSTEC. BIMSTEC, so the full form Bay of Bengal Initiative for the Multi-Sectoral Technical and Economic Cooperation. Too much in news. Why? Especially after the Prime Minister has decided to switch from SAARC to the BIMSTEC. In his first, Mr. Narendra Modi, in his first inaugural oath taking ceremony, he has asked all the SAARC leaders to come, and in the second one, he took all the BIMSTEC one. SAARC has remained in a very dormant position. No action, no particular meeting has taken place since the Uri attack. So the member of BIMSTEC are also 8 members: Bangladesh, Bhutan, India, Myanmar, Nepal, Sri Lanka, and Thailand. Okay. Okay, not 8 members. I'm sorry. So BIMSTEC, a free trade agreement, is under the negotiation. Now the BIMSTEC is getting the relevance. You'll see also the facts. It is under the negotiation, rooted in the alpha. So leadership is basically rotated in the alphabetical order of the countries. So BIMSTEC, again, the permanent secretariat was established after 2014 itself in Dhaka. Where is the permanent secretariat of SAARC? It is in the Kathmandu, okay, in Nepal. So it was founded in 1997 with only BIST, Bangladesh, India, Sri Lanka, and Thailand, and finally Bhutan and Nepal have joined, okay, in 2004. Also Also the summits have been very less frequent. You can see the leaders of BIMSTEC have held summits just 4 times in last 22 years, and that is why it has not been able to traction. It was not gaining. Now India has taken up the leadership of the BIMSTEC. One more point I want to discuss. There was an article by C. Rajaramohan. He is saying that SAARC failed. One of the reasons of failing of the SAARC is India has a one big country leading the SAARC. Okay, but versus BIMSTEC, BIMSTEC has the support of 2 countries, India and the Thailand. So now it is not only the responsibility of India but also of Thailand to support this organization. Okay. Next, he also talked about that Thailand is more focused, is concentrating more energies on ASEAN rather than the BIMSTEC, and that is one of the challenges of the BIMSTEC itself. Founding principles: the cooperation with BIMSTEC will constitute an additional to and not a substitute for existing bilateral, regional, and multilateral cooperation involving the member state. Official literature describe it as, you can use this in your answers, bridge between South and Southeast Asia, platform for intra-regional cooperation between SAARC and the ASEAN. Okay, so SAARC South Asia, ASEAN this, and this BIMSTEC connect the both the countries. Okay. For example, these are countries are part of SAARC, right? And this and these 2 from the ASEAN, right? So this is the thing. First summit held in Thailand. Now the current chair is with Sri Lanka. Importance not too much for prelims. Next is Quad. Now the idea initiated in 2007 by the Japanese Prime Minister. However, it gained more prominence in 2016, right? When the idea of Indo-Pacific, right, it replaced the idea of, not replaced but substituted the idea of Asia Pacific. Okay, so Indo-Pacific also considers India as a very integral partner of the whole scheme of things, right? So Quad is basically what it is not a forum, it is not a group till now, no formal grouping is there. However, it's just a forum, Intergovernmental Security Forum. Who are the 4 countries? Quad means 4: India, Japan, US, and Australia. Now you can see these countries in the vicinity of China, right, except from USA. So some people say that Quad is a counter to the increasing Chinese activism in this area. India's case, India is not a military partner while other 3 are. So all other 3 are the military partner. India is not a military partner. So how India balances the Quad? For example, India is also the part of Quad, but also India is also the part of SCO. India is also the part of RIC. Okay. So that's all, nothing too much. Just remember that idea of Quad is very integrally linked to the idea of Indo-Pacific. We'll see one of the Indo-Pacific Asian outlook on the Indo-Pacific that we'll discuss today. Next is G20. So earlier it started as a forum for the central bank governors, where the central bank governors and the finance minister, the financial thing it will take care of. However, it started, so we'll see slowly, an international forum for the government and the central bank governor. Currently, this is the position from 19 countries and one EU. Okay. First G20 summit was held in Berlin in December 1919 as hosted by the finance minister. Okay. So they were discussing the ideas related to financial stability. However, this 2008 crisis, the global crisis, started from the US financing crisis. So its agenda was expanded, including the head of the government now meet, as well as the finance minister and the foreign minister. So the expansion of the G20 has taken place. Why in the news? For the first time since, so India will be hosting the summit in 2022. Right? India will be hosting its first G20 summit in there. This time India in the Japan, the meeting was in Japan. Now India hosted two different meetings. One with RIC, that is India, Russia and China. And on the other hand, JAI, Japan, America and India. You can see two different polarities. Russia, China, India, Japan, America and India. So people say that is the victory of India, or the success of our India's strategic autonomy. We are able to balance all the major powers and discussing it in a simultaneously almost. So the countries of G20 will discuss how to remember those countries. I also tell you the template how to remember the countries also. So they represent 65% of the world population, 79% of the world trade, 84% of the world economy, and 79% of the carbon emissions. So that means these are the global leaders, right? These 20 countries are the decision makers who call the shots. Okay, without these countries' participation, very less things move. Now, how can we remember these G20 countries, right? So you have to make tricks for that. Mnemonics tricks you have to make it. For example, I have made this one. You can either choose to keep it or you can make your own. So trick includes G7 countries plus BRICS and EU. These three people have met. They have sat together for the aims to revive the economy. So you have to remember this line that three people have met. G7, BRICS and EU, they have met. They have sat together, SAT sat together for the aims to revive the economy, right? Now G7 countries, we will see G7 countries today itself. USA, Canada, Japan, France, UK, Italy, Germany. So these are G7 countries, the rich countries. BRICS, we know Brazil, Russia, India, China and South Africa. EU, one country, one block itself. Sat together means S, Saudi Arabia, A for Argentina, T for Turkey. Aims, A for Australia, I for Indonesia, Mexico and South Korea. One thing where I'm also telling you where you can miss out, M, that is Mexico. Okay. One thing you can miss out is I are India and Indonesia. A, that is Australia and Argentina. S, that is 3S, South Africa, South Korea and Saudi Arabia. So the three are the S, remember that. So currently Saudi, after the Japan, Saudi will have so Japan has 11 summit. Then Saudi will have the next, okay, from December 2019, it will end at 30 November 2020. So with this time, it will have its presidency, Saudi Arabia. So recent G20 summit, 11th summit was organized. It was also known as Osaka summit in Japan. G20 summit is formally called as Summit on Financial Market and the World Economy. So they will not ask G20 summit, right? They will ask the summit first. They will, in the question they can put, discuss the following with respect to the summit on the financial market and the world economy. Option A, it was the G7 summit or something. So remember, it is in the G20, and from whenever you recall G20, now you know everything. So they can confuse you right at the source itself, like Pakke and Pukhui they have done, right? If you remember, if you've seen the Tiger Reserve video, so Pakke and Pukhui, once they have changed the name. So this can be done. Summit on financial market and the world economy. Okay. So Japan's first presidency, as I told you, on 29, the first Japan held the first summit within its own territory, in its own form. So G20 consists of G7, G8. G8 means G7 plus Russia. Earlier, G7 expanded to include Russia. However, from 2014, when Russia invaded the Crimea, they have removed Russia from the G8. Now it again came back to G7. And the G20 countries, we have already seen that. Okay. So you discussed that history, and what is it we also discussed. So India has put in this time, India has put 9-point agenda for G20 to cooperate against the fugitive economic offender. So because India that time was dealing with the problems of the Nirav Modis and the Mehul Choksis, Vijay Mallya's, and also India has put forward its own fugitive economic amendment bill, ordinance was there. So India has given 9-point agendas there. Right? That's all for G20. That's all you need to know about G20, about the recent summit and the basic of G20, and some tricks to remember that. Next is Arctic Council. So it is from the Ottawa Declaration 1996. Ottawa it's a place in the Canada. Okay. So which are the countries? Find plus Russia, US, Russia, and Canada. So that is the trick you need. So there are 8 countries basically, and 8 countries. So one first is Find. You can remember Find plus US, Canada, okay, Russia and Sweden. Or you can make finds. This is the things you can do. Finds plus 3 power. US, Russia and Canada. Who are these finds? Finland, Iceland, Norway, Denmark and Sweden. Right? So criteria kya hai? What is the criteria of being in Arctic Council? Why India cannot be in Arctic Council? Because those countries that are located in the Arctic region itself. Okay. So India's case, India was granted the observer status in 2013. That's all you need to remember, that India has an observer status along with China, along with South Korea, right? And so many other countries. You need to know India's case. So India also has a Arctic research station Himadri there. Okay, Himadri. Work on your end. Remember, ask. Yes, it is there. So I wanted you to ask, but it is. I've already mentioned that Antarctica. We have 3 missions: Dakshin Gangotri, Maitri, and Bharati. Okay, so Dakshin Gangotri, Maitri, and Bharati. You can remember like DMB, or if you want to make a mnemonic, maybe as absurd as dumb, DUMB. So it is at the bottommost Antarctica, so everyone can dump anything. So DUMB, that is Dakshin Gangotri, Maitri, and Bharati, which is at the Arctic Himadri. Okay, so H is above and DMB is the bottommost. So Arctic Council and Arctic observer countries. So as I told you, India, China, and South Korea and other few European countries are also the observer countries. Next is Arctic Treaty of Dialogue Forum. So provides one of the key platforms for discussing and the problems and the prospects of the Arctic region at a global level. The event is held with the direct support from the government of Russia Federation. Why in the news? Because Russia is keen to India to join this Arctic Territory of Dialogue Forum. Okay. So one of the forums of the Arctic itself. Next is Eurasian Economic Union, EEU. So India is negotiating a comprehensive economic partnership agreement with this EEU. What is important for you? That what are the countries in the EEU? Now the UPSC has played too much on the Middle East. GCC they have already asked. ASEAN, many questions has been asked. Now this is the new territory because India has also promised in Mr. Narendra Modi 1 billion of aid to the Russia's Far East. So Central Asian countries and the Russia, the EEUs, they can be the next on agenda for the questions. So includes the BARK, BARKK, that is Belarus, Armenia, Russia, Kazakhstan and Kyrgyzstan. So itself, they represent 15% of the world's dry land. Other things you need to no need to remember. So 4 countries I was discussing. This BARK. First is Belarus, A is Armenia, and 3 countries are also part of SCO, that is Russia, Kyrgyzstan and Kazakhstan. Okay. These countries are new. Also remember their capital. So that can be your homework. Remember the capital of these 5 countries. Okay. You can comment in the comment box also. Please comment the capitals of this country. Right. So joint feasibility study of the government, officially known as the Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement, is in the news. Now, one of the things they are what India wants to invest there in good services, investment and all. One of the challenges is the Russian language will be challenged for the IT companies apart from the other. Now, this engagement with these kinds of engagement will also help India-Russia dialogue. Russia, because one of the key determinants has been the military partner, the defense partnership, India and Russia, right? Now, India is diversifying its option, and India and Russia economic partnership has not been too great. So, this EEU, success of EEU can be a factor in that, potent factor in that. Next is UNSC, United Nations Security Council. So it is one of the 6 organ state of the United Nations in charge with the maintenance of the international peace and security. So one of the 6 organization. So on the homework, you can talk technically about which are the 5 organization. I can give you a hint: UNGA, ICJ, right? So remember also the 5 principal organs. Okay. Power: establishment of peacekeeping operations, establishment of international sanctions, authorization of military action through Security Council's resolution, the only UN body with authority to issue binding resolutions to the member state. Binding resolutions to the member state. Member, so basically 15 members are there. 5 are permanent member and 10 are non-permanent member. Permanent member, everybody knows, Russia, UK, France, China and US. And non-permanent member, you don't have to remember. They are there for some 2-year purpose, and it rotates among all its members, the presidency among all 15 members. So these are the 10 non-permanent member for now. Just took a notice of Indonesia. We'll discuss that. You don't have to remember the countries. I'm telling you, no need to remember that. Okay. When India is there, just remember that. But remember one fact, that India is currently not a non-permanent member. India has been non-permanent member many times and striving for the permanent member. So coming to this resolution, United Nations Security Council 1267 resolution. What is this? It was adopted in 1999. Masood Azhar. That is the news, right? That is the context. We'll discuss that. So action on the situation of the Afghanistan, the council designated Osama bin Laden associates as terrorist. So it established a sanction regime to cover the individuals and entities associated with Al-Qaeda, Osama bin Laden and Taliban, wherever located. It is a consolidated list of people and entities it has determined as being associated with Al-Qaeda and the Taliban. Laws must be passed within each member nation to implement the sanctions. So if any person is there, then their assets will be freezed. The countries have to take care of it. So these things to be done. Now, India always wanted to put this Masood Azhar into this sanction committee, right? Masood Azhar has been linked to Osama bin Laden and hence been sanctioned under this committee. Currently, India is not a member of UNSC and therefore technically not privy to the UNSC deliberation. As I told you, this 15 country, the presidency rotates. So Indonesia is currently the chair of 1067 sanction committee and will continue till the end of the 2019. Now some other country will be there. So it is supportive of the move to ban Azhar, right? So from 2009, India moved to proposal to UN itself to designate Jaish chief Masood Azhar. However, despite the support from US, UK and France, it was not getting support of the China. China has always been vetoing this proposal to put this person into the list. Okay. So a UNSC ban would subject Azhar to an all asset travel ban and arm embargo. Okay. However, after much diplomatic effort, after much diplomatic capital have been efforted by India at many levels, finally they got the Masood Azhar designated as the global terrorist. So the news says how India brought China to its knees only in this context. So try to understand. So things took turn after the US warned China. Things took turn when the US warned China that it will take the matter to the UNSC, escalating the matter from this committee to the UNSC. Now within this committee, where one could not even speak on who was blocking the move to the UNSC, so there will be internal meetings. Now when the matter will be escalated to UNSC, then would be led to the public debate, right? So on the public record, it will be that China is opposing this move and China is de facto is sponsoring the terrorism. where the Beijing will stand exposed for helping the internationally infamous terrorist. Thus, after almost a decade, China decided to withdraw its hold on the listing of the proposal against the Azhar. So that goes to show that how much capital India has spent with US and how good relations are India and US, especially on the strategic matters. Okay. Following the decision, said it will withdraw its technical hold after no objection to the listing by US and all this. Okay. Next, coming to the next organization after UNSC, that is G7. So the member of G7, you need to make a code for it to remember. Otherwise, it's relatively easy. All the rich countries of world. So, two from the North America, US and Canada, one Japan. So how many remaining? Four. Four from the Europe. So four are France, Germany, UK. Everybody knows. Now surprise entry is of Italy. Just remember that. Italy is a dark horse there. Okay. So Italian premier. So G7 is an organization made up of the world's 7 largest so-called advanced economies. All these economies, right? The group itself is regards itself as the community of values. Which values? Freedom and human rights, democracy, rule of law, prosperity, and sustainable development as its key principles. What does it do? So basically, there were six countries have met in 1975, especially over the 1973 oil crisis. 1973 was oil crisis, and that can be your homework. Read about the 1973 oil crisis. So after that, this 1975, they have formed the G7 group to discuss the matters of mutual interest. Currently, if we say G7 countries, so 7 countries, 40% of the world GDP, 1/10 of the population, and that is these two will be, I'll discuss. So in 2014, as we're discussing, that Russia was suspended over the annexation of the Crimea. Now, as this G7 is losing its ground because the global GDP they used to dominate, now the domination by China, India will be there. Second, the population, the shrinking population. So overall clout of G7 is, so people currently are pitching G7 against the BRICS. BRICS is the next big thing, it is said in international diplomacy, where the countries of the BRICS will be shaping the global norms, unlike the G7 that has been shaping till now. Next is OIC, Organization of Islamic Cooperation, so founded in 1969, completed just 50 years in its 2019. An Indian foreign minister was invited to the meeting. India is not a member. Okay. The members include Iran and Pakistan, apart from the other 55 countries. Headquarters is in Jeddah in Saudi Arabia to raise the collective voice of the Muslim world. So collective voice of the Muslim world, they say that this organization represents the collective voice of the Muslim world. Okay. Status, OIC has a permanent delegation to UN and the EU. It is the second largest intergovernmental organization after UN. So after UN, it is the second largest intergovernmental organization. India and OIC, India has been blocked by Pakistan over the joining the OIC over the Kashmir issue, though it has 12% of the world's Muslim population. But countries like Indonesia, right, and others, few of the countries are supporting India's entry into this OIC. OIC regards, no, that's the problem. OIC regards Kashmir as the occupied by India. Okay. For example, there's a saying that Muslim world considers India as a friend, but Pakistan as a brother. Okay. So that is the problem. And Pakistan and India have a very long clash over the Kashmir. So too many organizations, just remember this OIC. Slowly we'll try to cover the majority of the relevant organization for our discussion. For example, GCC we'll discuss. Okay. So we have discussed that, established in 1969. Next is, as I was discussing, we will discuss ASEAN's outlook on the Indo-Pacific. So ASEAN has adopted an initiative that reinforces ASEAN-centered regional architecture. First, I'll discuss what it is basically. So Indo-Pacific is an idea. I was telling you that after 2016, it has gained a lot of ground. Idea of Indo-Pacific by US, India, Australia, and Japan, and all this. So every country is coming out with it, what Indo-Pacific stands for them. What will be their priority? For example, for US, they have said that the idea of Indo-Pacific is to exclude China. It is against China. For India, India has talked about freedom, openness, and prosperity. Okay, now every country is coming out and document of the Indo-Pacific, and that is the problem of Indo-Pacific itself, because every country has its own interpretation of Indo-Pacific. For example, now ASEAN has said that we lie at the center of Indo-Pacific. You can see from the location of ASEAN itself, it lies at the central. So ASEAN said few things, few important things. First, we do not want any other, do not make any other institutional structure. We do not want to be overburdened or over putting money into this new institutions. Rather, aimed at not creating new mechanism or replacing the existing one. They are saying work on the existing one. Focus on the approach of convergence, right? So now ASEAN also says that ASEAN is central to the idea of Indo-Pacific. So they talk about ASEAN centrality. Okay, so remember this word. So this intends to enhance ASEAN community building process to strengthen, then gives the new momentum for the existing ASEAN-led mechanism. So ASEAN wants its centrality in the idea of Indo-Pacific. Any decision taken on Indo-Pacific, ASEAN wants itself to be the central. And more importantly, this ASEAN outlook on Indo-Pacific finds resonance with the Indian outlook as well. India also sees the ASEAN centrality. India also wants that ASEAN should be the central driving force of this idea of Indo-Pacific. And that's all you need to know about the Indo-Pacific from Brilliant's perspective. From Main's perspective, that can also always be a potential question. So they have come up with their own perspective. Next is GCC, Gulf Cooperation Summit. So 39 summit has been conducted and the declaration of Riyadh Declaration has been there. So GCC has been political and economic alliance of the 6 countries in the Arabian Peninsula. What are the 6 countries? Bahrain, Kuwait, Oman, Qatar, Saudi and UAE. In fact, this is one of the trickiest area of the world map. Okay, so you need to keep a track of it. Actually, the question on GCC has already been asked. Okay, so I don't expect that to come again, but for the sake of covering it, we are covering it. Established in 1981. Details. So basically, all the members are monarchy. These 3 countries, 3 are constitutional monarchy like Qatar, Kuwait and Bahrain. 2 are absolute, Saudi and Oman. 1 federal, that is UAE. UAE is very interesting. Read about UAE in a Wikipedia. So Dubai, Abu Dhabi and other you will find. Just read about it. Huh? Go relatively beyond what is in your syllabus. It will help you. So location if we see, so 4th number is Kuwait. Remember, you can remember from Iran's Saddam's second Gulf War. You can remember the invasion of Iraq on the Kuwait, right? Movie was Airlift. Third is Bahrain. It is called the Pearl in Persia. This is Persian Gulf, na? This is the one is just one is Qatar. Okay, 6th is UAE. This is Oman and this is Saudi. We have discussed Yemen. Remember last time we have discussed Yemen civil war. Okay, so this one is Qatar. Qatar is also facing problems at the Qatar and Saudi are at loggerheads at many issues. Qatar and Saudi. Al Jazeera, you must have heard of it. Al Jazeera, very good newspaper and the reports really well. They are formed by the Qatari government. Okay. Next we're gonna see, just 1 second, yes. Next we're gonna see summits and the initiatives that have taken place. So the first initiative we're gonna see, that's I Belong campaign. Right? So I Belong campaign is basically from United Nations Human Rights Council to end statelessness by 2024. Because you see, problem of nationality and citizenship we have seen, like Australia, we have seen campaigns. The other countries also, India, you can see campaigns, not campaigns, but initiative that that can promote statelessness of people, right? Rohingya crisis, the European Union. So a humanitarian campaign to end statelessness by resolving the existing statelessness, preventing new cases from emerging and better identifying and protecting the stateless population. Because these stateless people are the most persecuted. They do not get any advantage of the any schemes, and they are at the very most vulnerable sections of the society. So every person has a right to say I belong. So that's how this UNHR taking up the initiative. Next is CCIT, Comprehensive Convention on the International Terrorism, very famous treaty India repeats this treaty again and again as a counter to the terrorism. And this treaty also goes to show why the consensus on the terrorism is not there. So proposed by India in 1996, not adopted yet by UN, aim to define terrorism and enhance normative process for the prosecution extradition of the terrorist. So for example, if it comes into the being, then if someone is declared terrorist, then just like a Masood Azhar, if someone is declared terrorist, then all his assets will be freezed. The country where he has committed act of terrorism, he will be brought to that country. There will be a smooth process of extradition, right? That will be there. However, if you see you see what it calls for universal definition for the terrorism, and every time any terrorist attack happens, whether it be in the Christchurch or in the Sri Lanka, India says that we need to adopt the CCIT as soon as possible. So no good terrorist or bad terrorist. That is the problem in the Taliban. Like Pakistan calls few as the good terrorists and few as the bad terrorists. Ban on all the groups regardless of the country of operation. The persecution of all groups cutting across the cross borders, and amendment of the domestic laws to make cross border terror an extraditable offense. So why it has been blocked? For example, US and allies, they say our soldiers go into other territory. Now you say, these people will say, let's say this is the country 1, this is country 2, this country send its soldier there. So this country will say you are terrorist, and this country will say you are terrorist. So they say concern over the definition of terrorism, including the acts of US soldiers in the international intervention without the UN mandate. For example, US intervention in Libya, US intervention in Vietnam, many places. Next, Latin American countries are concerned over international humanitarian laws and human rights being ignored. These OIC countries are concerned that the convention will be used to target Pakistan and restrict the right to self-determination. Okay, groups in the Palestine and the Kashmir. They say that if it is passed, then people from the Palestine will be considered as terrorists. Many of them, then their right to self-determination will be violated. Next, we talk about Interpol's red notice. So, red notice is not an international arrest warrant. It's an issued by Interpol General Secretariat. It is a request to locate and provisionally arrest an individual pending extradition. It gives high international visibility to the cases. So remember, it is not an arrest warrant, right? It's just a request to locate and arrest, provisionally arrest. So locate, because these people go out from India and they hide somewhere on the world. So then Indian agencies like CBI has to take the help of the Interpol to track them in other countries. Benefit: criminal suspects are flagged to the border officials, making their travel difficult. So countries can request and share critical information linked to investigation issued if police of the one country request through their National Central Bureau. For example, India, it is CBI, and provide information on the case. Interpol cannot compel any other member country to arrest the individual subject to the red notice. Okay, Interpol cannot compel, and that is the idea of sovereignty, right? That sovereignty ultimately is of that country. The international organizations cannot compel them. A legal value given to the red notice is decided by the member country. Okay, so this is the 3 request process. First, the country will request, the Interpol will review, and then they'll take a decision whether red notice should be issued or not issued. Very easy. The type of the Interpol notices. Now there are many types, right? I cannot recommend you to read all the types. Just remember the type that has been used. For example, read the red notice. That I cannot tell you to remember every notice. You cannot even track that. Okay, so this is how, this is the red notice because it has been issued for the Nirav Modi. That is why you need to remember that only, and remember about the Interpol. We'll discuss Interpol somewhere down the line. Next, Kimberley process certification scheme. So aim is to reduce the conflict diamond, the flow of the conflict diamond. So what are these conflict diamond or the blood diamonds? So the question can come, the blood diamonds are those diamonds which reflect the red light? Answer is no. Blood diamonds are diamonds from the conflict areas. They used to finance war against the government around the world, mostly in African countries. Right? So these are 55 countries representing 82 countries. India is currently was the chair in 2019 of the Kimberley process certification scheme. India, supported by the Gems and Jewelry Export Promotion Council of India, is hosting this event for the first time. Right? For example, these diamonds are used by the for the from the conflict area, and the conflict in this area is due to the possession of these diamonds. So what they will do, every rough diamond is accompanied by a certification confirming its non-conflict origin, export and import procedure in the most of the countries that are not subject to the rigorous control. Getting my point? It's very easy that from one area that is in a conflict zone. Why? Just because it is containing the diamond resources. Now, if this Kimberley process is being successful, then those diamonds will not be accepted. Then there will be high probability to give that reins of that particular region to a democratic government, so that those diamonds itself become legitimate. Next is, there's a type of an agreement that is new, the status of the force agreement. So an agreement between the host country and the foreign nation is stationing the military forces in that country. Statement between the host country and the foreign nation. So visiting forces agreement between the, so this is that. So basically it's an agreement. If this agreement is signed between the two countries, then the one country can have its military present in the other country. For example, LEMUA. So India and USA. So India and they have not such kind of an agreement where the US military can be placed in India. No, that cannot be there. The India cannot be the base to the US military. Next very important initiative, data free flow with trust. Data free flow with trust. So pitched by this Shinzo Abe. So announced by the Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe in January. Came after the RBI's guidelines mandating the storage of all financial data, including the multinational company, must be kept on the servers of India. So when the whole talk of data localization is happening, whether it be EU, whether it be India, then Mr. Shinzo Abe is saying that there should be free flow of data across the borders, and there should be robust data governance. So he calls for global consensus on the data governance. Noting that data drives everything, Shinzo Abe said Osaka G20 summit will focus on establishing rule for the new frontier. Next is online tool Aware. So it's by WHO, has launched a global campaign guiding policymakers and the health workers to use antibiotics safely and more effectively. Antibiotics. Remember which is the for India? That is the Red Line campaign. Okay, so you can relate by Red Line and the Aware. So Aware tool developed by WHO essential medicine list to contain the rising resistance and the make antibiotics safer and more effective. One of the problems with the antibiotic is, if you overuse this antibiotic, then there will be a resistance against this antibiotic. Then you have to take a high-end antibiotics. Okay, and that creates a problem. Next is Global Entrepreneurship Summit. Now in 2017, India has held this summit. That from then it became really important. So earlier it used to happen only in USA. Now they are having it outside USA. So ninth edition has been organized in The Hague, Netherlands. Number of entrepreneurs from across the world, including 27 from the India. Who are the host? Government of USA, Kingdom of Netherlands, and the first edition to be held in the European Union. So it is the first one in the European Union. In 2017, the first one is in the South Asia, that is organized in India, focus on the issue of women first, prosperity of all. So many women entrepreneurs were there. Ivanka Trump came in India for the first time. It was the first edition of the Global Entrepreneur Summit, takes place in South Asia. More than 50% of delegates were women. Okay. So from June 4th and 5th, it was happening in the Hague, Netherlands. Next is International Seed Testing Association Congress 2019. So it was held in Hyderabad. What you need to remember, that it is organized by government of Telangana with the government of India has organized this. Okay. So what is ISTA? It's an independent organization supported by the non-profit corporation of the experienced seed scientist and the analysis. Very peripheral topic, but just for the sake of completion, we have to tackle it, because if it comes, then it should not be there that we have not covered that. So founded in 1924, it produces internationally agreed rules for seed sampling and testing, and provides accreditation to the laboratories. The same thing, right? Next is Conference on the Interaction and the Confidence Building Measures in Asia, CICA Summit. Conference on Interaction and Confidence Building Measures in Asia Summit. Okay, so fifth one held in Dushanbe, that is the capital of the Tajikistan. I told you that you have to remember the capital of the Central Asian countries. Convened every 4 years. That's again you have to remember. Is a multinational forum for enhancing the cooperation towards the promoting peace, security, and stability in Asia. Okay. So membership, for becoming a member of CICA, you must have a territory in Asia. Must have a territory in the Asia. United Nations has observer status. India is the founding member of the CICA. Remember that India is a founding member. So first summit was held in 2002, right? India, Mr. Atal Bihari Vajpayee participated in that. So currently our foreign minister is going for the 5th CICA summit. Okay. So these are the countries included in the CICA summit. There are few countries which are not there. For example, you can see Turkmenistan not there. Okay. And all you can see Saudi Arabia and all these countries not there. There must have some part in Asia. So this Myanmar is not there, Bangladesh not there, but not important. I don't think so. That is too much important. Conference itself is important, not the member countries. E2020 summits, these initiatives, these initiatives, like small initiatives, like they are important. So what is it, it is saying the E20 initiative for malaria eliminating countries, 21 malaria eliminating countries. So in May 2015, WHO endorsed a new global strategy for malaria 2016 to 2030. So key milestone for 2020 is elimination of malaria in at least 10 countries that have um, disease in the 2015. So they are saying that by 2020, 10 countries have eliminated malaria. Okay. Initiative of 21 malaria eliminating countries. Okay. That is important for the, because currently the too much talk about TB. We have discussed so many initiatives like the governance class last time. Na? TB, so many initiatives on TB. Now remember E2020 is with respect to malaria. Next is World Food Program, Food Assistance Branch of the United Nations. Okay. So headquarter is same as the FAO, the world's largest humanitarian organization addressing hunger and promoting food security. So it's a member of the United Nations Development Group, World Food Program. Okay. So now their research area is focusing on the climate change, because climate change is supposed to bring a lot of problem toward the food and the hunger security, creating a problem of hidden hunger as well. Next, Operation Blizzard. So coordinated by Interpol to counter the illegal reptile trade. So counter Operation Blizzard, combating illegal reptile trade by Interpol. This is the data they are giving, but not too much important for the data itself. Next is Regional Cooperation Agreement on the combating piracy and armed robbery against the ships in the Asia. So I was talking about the Indo-Pacific, right? So one of the pillars of Indo-Pacific is prosperity, openness. So when the one of the threat to openness is these things. This maritime piracy is one of the threat to it. So this regional cooperation agreement has been signed for against the combating the piracy and the armed robbery. So the first regional government to government agreement to deal with the piracy and armed robbery at the sea in the Asia. Details: information sharing center has been established at the Singapore to collate and disseminate the information among the contracting parties and the maritime community. Presently 20 members are countries are the member, including the India. That means India is the member of this. Obviously in Asia, and India is a big stakeholder in that. Okay. So this is RECAAP. You see why these are very peripheral topics. I'm telling you, right? What we are reading, G7, OECD, these things are very fashionable and we read about these things. But you have to cover all these things, because you see no exclusion error should be there on your part. If UPSC asks, because they have been asking these relatively tricky portions, the peripheral areas, especially in the international relation, that is why we are taking extra efforts to include all these initiatives also, especially where India is a big stakeholder. Okay. So the vision is to become a information hub for combating piracy and armed robbery against the ship in the Asia. Now we come to the last section of our discussion, that is the bilateral relationships. First is GSP. So much in news last year. That is Generalized System of Preferences Status. So it is a preferential tariff system extended by the developed countries to the developing countries. That is from developed countries to the developing countries. Okay. also known as the preference receiving countries or the beneficiary countries. Components, it involves reduced MFN tariffs or the duty-free entries for the eligible products exported from the beneficiary country to the market of the donor country. So that is one of the initiatives. For example, there's a rich country, developed country. So it is getting the imports from the developing country, right? So this system of preferences says that we will give preference to these countries, these poor developing countries or least developed countries. Getting my point? And they are given the exemption under the MFN status, most favored nation status. Somewhere down the line, we'll discuss that. So they are within the paradigm of WTO. They are not breaching the idea of free trade because that is a fair trade, giving opportunities to those developing countries to develop, and development is acceleration of development is taken through trade only. Okay. So currently 29 countries, 28 countries have extended GSP status to India. So India is getting this GSP thing from 28 countries. US is one of them. Japan, New Zealand, Canada, Australia and other countries are there. So remember, not only US is giving us the GSP status, but also these countries, Japan, New Zealand, Australia, Canada, Russia, sorry, not Australia. Please remember the above countries name, right? So when GSP measures are adopted at UN CTAT conference in 1968 and later enacted by the Journal Trade and Tariff in 1971. So not too much important. I told you that it is within the paradigm of WTO, so remember that. Why in the news? USA has recently withdrawn its status from the India. So India has a trade surplus with America because another policy of America first and Trump's willingness to go on the trade war, right? He is saying that it is not only free and open trade. We have to move from free and open trade to fair and reciprocal trade, right? He's talking about the idea of fairness, that too much, it's been too much that the countries have taken advantage of the America. They are taking advantage of America's generosity, right? And they have said that countries like India, which have such much trade surplus, we have trade surplus with US. Now he's targeting the countries with which US has trade deficit. From the US side, trade deficit. And China and India are on the top of the list. Okay, by forcing more imports by the Delhi. Okay. And India's core concerns are steel and the aluminum tariff levied by USA and US proposal to review the GSP status. Okay. So Mr. Donald Trump is the person, I'll say he is the culprit of it. So we'll discuss the GSP of USA very quickly. We'll finish it. It says the zero tariff for certain goods from a set of 121 developing countries. So for India, they are getting from the 28 countries. USA is giving it to 121 countries, around 120 plus countries, okay, to foster their trade and economic development. US has recently withdrawn this status, obviously, okay, and this USTR, Special 301 report, reviews the program periodically, the GSP program, which country should be there, which country should be taken out of the list. So it accounts for India, accounts for the 5.6 billion of the India's export to the US, which is goes through GSP, okay. Chemical, gems, jewelry, and these are the among the Indian and industrial sector that will that are benefiting from the GSP. This is not clear volume, but still withdrawal of the GSP status to India will have a minimum impact because they are saying that now India will always downplay that, right? That it will have minimum impact because now this is beyond repair. Now America has decided and they went ahead with it. Now India is trying to like contain the situation and they are saying that it's a very minimal impact, but it will have a certain impact. For example, this much product, organic products, vehicle parts are being there in the this Indian exports on the GSP, right? So you can see over 1 billion of the trade of organic, chemical and all this. So now they will have a duty when they go into the US. India does not have a free trade agreement with USA, isn't it? Next is Industrial Security Annex. Now it's between India and USA. Remember, India and USA. It will allow the Indian private sector to collaborate with US defense industry. ISA is a particularly essential as Indian industry looks for the greater role in the defense manufacturing. So greater role India in the defense manufacturing. It allows the sharing of the classified information from US government and American companies with the Indian private sector, which is so far limited to the Indian government and the defense public sector undertakings. It allows the sharing of the classified information from US government and American companies with Indian private sector. So now, as India is having a quest for the defense manufacturing hub, right? Because one of the problem in India is the defense manufacturing capabilities. So now India is planning so that from US we can have some technology, some expertise, so that we can improve our defense ecosystem. So this will, industrial security annex will help in that. Remember, it is a part of this agreement, that is General Security of Military Information Agreement, not the part of LEMOA, not the part of SISMOA, okay, not part of BECA. I hope you know all these names, isn't it? We'll try to cover it sometime, but you need to remember these are very normal terminology in international affair. The key agreement that USA signs with its allies. Okay, so India has signed this way back. So under this signed India long back, it became critical as India opened up defense sector for the private sector. Now India has already allowed a defense sector 100% FDI, right, with approval. So now this becomes relevant. Next is sister city agreement between the Kobe in Japan and the Ahmedabad. Kobe Bryant is also recently died, a famous basketball player. So this is city from Japan. This agreement will formalize the relationship between the two cities. Both are unique in their own way. That is, while Kobe is a creative design city of Asia, the Ahmedabad is India's first World Heritage City. So sister city agreement will help in more opportunities and cooperation between on the academic, cultural as well as business fronts. Okay, so Mr. Modi signing this sister city agreement. Kobe, if you see the location, you see Japan, and within Japan you can see Osaka and Kobe. Osaka, you remember G20 summit happened. Okay, Nagoya Protocol, Kyoto Protocol, right? Tokyo, the capital. So very important cities of Japan. So what is sister city? Basically, the concept of sister city or the twin town is a legal and the social agreement between town, cities, countries, or provinces between the two separate countries to promote cultural and the commercial ties. Remember that. For example, there was a sister city agreement between Kyoto and Varanasi as also. Both are the spiritual capitals of respective countries. Next is joint exclusive economic zone surveillance. So from the name itself, surveillance of the economic zones. Under the neighborhood first policy, the Navy undertakes joint exclusive economic zone surveillance with Maldives, Seychelles, Mauritius, and coordinated patrol with Bangladesh, Myanmar, Thailand, and the Indonesia, helping them in the surveillance of the EEZ. For example, countries like Maldives and Mauritius, Seychelles may not have that capability because they have large EEZ, isn't it? But they may not have the capability to surveillance of that place. So India is a part of its non-reciprocity under the overall umbrella of neighborhood first is helping these countries. Okay, so Indian naval ship Sumedha. So remember the name Sumedha. Okay, a naval offshore patrol vessel has been deployed to undertake joint EEZ surveillance of Maldives. As part of the Navy's mission-based deployments, the ship would undertake the operational turnaround at Malé. So these things you need to remember. First thing Sumedha, and the other is the joint EEZ surveillance. Next is very important project always in news, that is Kaladan Multimodal Transit Transport Project. So it aims to connect the eastern seaport of Kolkata with Sitwe seaport in Rakhine in the Myanmar by sea. Okay, so, like to connecting the Indian seaport of Kolkata with the seaport of Sitwe, and then connecting with India itself. We'll see how. In Myanmar, it will link Sitwe seaport to Pletwa town in Myanmar via Kaladan River, then Pletwa, not Pletwa, Paltwa, right? Myanmar's name, by road to Mizoram state. So you see the map, then you'll understand, obviously. So from here, so it will take the sea route, then a river route, River Kaladan will be there. Then from here, the highway, very clear, right? So when you have sea route, you have the river route and you have the road route. And finally, it goes to the Mizoram. So an alternative route to the that other route that goes from above. So it can be beneficial for the integration of the trades. So India is also assisting China for the Sitwe port. That can also be seen in strategic terms, countering China's string of pearls, right? So China is targeting the Cocoa Islands of the Myanmar and the Chittagong port of the Bangladesh. So India is working on the Sitwe port. Next, very important, Sagar program. Sagar is the over umbrella, the Mr. Modi umbrella things, under which all the things of Indo-Pacific comes into being, right? Sagar means security and growth of all in the region. So announced by 2015 by Modi during the visit to IOR countries, Indian Ocean Rim Association countries. It's a maritime initiative which gives priority to Indian Ocean region for ensuring peace, stability and prosperity of India in the ancient Indian Ocean region, in the line with the principles of the IORA, Indian Ocean Rim Association. Okay. So what are the goal? Very not prelim specific, just need to remember that's a maritime initiative, focus on Indo-Pacific and all this. If you see all the mains perspective, climate of trust and transparency, respect for international maritime rules, peaceful resolution of maritime issues and all this. So if you're writing in the mains, we write actually, so within the Sagar umbrella, the schemes like Sagar Mala, schemes like Project Mosam, Indo-Pacific Strategy, the IONS, Indian Ocean Naval Symposium, all this under the umbrella of Sagar. Next is motor vehicle agreement. So for motor vehicle agreement, currently for this, India, Myanmar and Thailand trilateral highway. So if from India, from Moreh, okay, to Mandalay and Mandalay to Mesut. So triple M is there, Moreh, Mandalay and Mesut. So between this, the motor vehicle agreement is there. So basically what it is, to eliminate the non-tariff barrier, majorly. For example, one vehicle goes from India to Myanmar border. Now what is done? The goods are unloaded from the this particular vehicle cannot go from India to Myanmar because that will enter into the Myanmar country, Myanmar territory. So the goods from India will take place. The goods will be taken to the Myanmarese vehicle. Then from Myanmar, again it will offload. Then unloading on the Thailand. So it takes a lot of time, energy, resources. So the motor vehicle agreement will ensure that that is smoothens out. It will provide a highway on this. The Indian vehicle can go to the Thailand. Okay. So this agreement is necessary to utilize the physical road infrastructure on IMT trilateral highway. One with BBIN was also in news. We'll discuss. Okay. Though this trilateral highway, first you need to see the location of this highway. For example, this Moreh in Moreh. So remember, this Moreh is in Manipur, and this was what we were discussing. Platwa, you can see Platwa, Kaladan River, Sitwe, and this is through highway in the Mizoram. Okay. So remember that Moreh is in Manipur and this is in the Mizoram. Moreh, so from there to here, then Mesut, Mandalay in between and the Mesut. Okay. This map is very relevant. So BBIN was also in use. BBIN is basically what? Bhutan, Bangladesh, India and Nepal. So India wanted a motor vehicle agreement on this route also, but however Bhutan has withdrawn from it, citing that this will cause an ecological damage because of the overload of the trade, something like that, to because it will cause a damage to their too much vehicles will be there in the country, and they care more about the happiness than the economic things, right? So that is the main logic. Next is Bio-Oceanic Railway Integration Corridor Project. So MOU has been signed between India and Bolivia. Remember, Bolivia, to exchange information, conduct meetings. Central Biocean is planned to build across the South America. You can see from here to there. So this plant has been made to prepare this Bio-Oceanic Railway Integration Project. Okay. So it passes through Peru, starts from Peru, Bolivia, then Brazil. So from Santos, from the city that is Ilo in Peru, and who is the project leader, that is below Bolivia. So MOU has been signed with India and Bolivia. So Indian engineers, for example, what India will give? For example, here it is written. What India will give? Facilitation of information, because we have one of the largest, apart from the China, one of the largest railway networks in India, right? So information, expert meeting, seminar, technical visit, implementation of jointly agreed projects. So you can see this is the project we are helping with Bolivia with. Okay, next is Tapi pipeline, very famous Tapi pipeline. Everybody knows Tapi pipeline. We'll just pin it down that we have covered it. So Turkmenistan, Afghanistan, India and Pakistan, Tapi full form. From Turkmenistan, this Gelkash gas field to India, Fazilika. So in 2013 it was started, but still it is not in the very slow process. You can see from the name itself, passing through one of the volatile region of the world, Afghanistan. Then cooperation between India and Pakistan. How is that possible, right? So Turkmenistan, Herat, Kandahar, Multan, Fazilika. So like that, you can see here. So it started from Galkansh gas field in Turkmenistan, in Herat, then Kandahar, then Quetta in the Baluchistan, then Multan, then Fazilika, Punjab. Okay, so this was the route, and then Pakistan is there, Afghanistan is there, and how can we expect to cooperation? So that's the end of the session. We have reached an end to this session, of relatively long session, but it is relevant because international organizations and international news always figures in a prelims paper, right? So we have seen the 4-4 division that we always do: country specific, institutions, summit initiative, and the bilateral one. Reading this in a very structured way will help you in the revision itself. If you can download the PDF, you download the PDF and you revise, you can revise very strategically. Okay, so this session is done. Now I'll see you in the next session, that is on polity, economy, polity, and ecology. Okay, see you in the next class. Thank you.